Doesn't want to go. Giving the introduction right here. Hi, this is Leo Knighton Tallarico, and we are on Perspectives from the Sky, also known as Spiritual Renaissance. And today we've got a special guest. JudyAnn Masters will be joining us in 20 minutes or so. And then, of course, Deborah Knighton Tallarico will be with us also, giving her self and her knowledge and her calm spirit to our show. JudyAnn Masters is going to delve into other dimensions where she hangs out sometimes and some ET connections. And I think you really will enjoy JudyAnn coming on soon. Remember, I promised you all that through my blog, too, that we are going to be talking more and more about the multidimensional world that we live in, other frequencies, other dimensions, and most importantly, talking about ETs and our connections with them and how they more and more are going to make themselves known as our world goes through its challenges and challenges it is going through. We let you all know that the age of Aquarius started at winter solstice 2020. We'll let you know back then that does not mean that we move into this perfect golden age as soon as that happens. The age of Pisces began probably about 100, 150 years before Christ was born. And then Christ had a lot to do with setting a certain ambiance for the new age. And we know that the world didn't turn into like a perfect Piscean age right after he was born. The Roman Empire was going on at the same time. So what's happening is there's a change of consciousness, just like that. Think about it then. Christ's birth, change of consciousness into believing in love more, compassion, caring for those that suffer. But trust me, everyone wasn't doing it the moment that we turned into the Pisces age. A lot of people aren't doing it still. So it takes a while to move into the new age. And what happens is the old age still yells and screams that it wants to stay. That's kind of how things work. Things don't die that easily. They fight to keep living. Sometimes put themselves on life support systems, so to speak, and keep going after they actually are not right for the world anymore. Kind of like how things have worked. So please keep your faith that we are in this new age, and you'll know we're in this new age as your consciousness changes, because that's the real proof. It's consciousness. And we're slowly trying to get the collective consciousness in a way that you can know you're in this new age more and more. A lot of people talk about, 144,000 souls. I think that's in the Bible too, have reached a certain level of consciousness that then we have made it. I don't know about that number, maybe. But what counts is more and more of us are getting into that new consciousness. And that's what helps the whole world get better. Yeah, sometimes you got to do protests and you got to do things out in the world that help change the world. But what changes it more than anything else is what we each do in our consciousness. Because what goes on the inside has such a great, powerful effect on what goes on the outside. You know that yourself in your own life. Have you ever gotten to a place where, you're angry and you're bitter about something or someone, and then something shifts inside and you start having more compassion, you start having more empathy for that person? Or maybe you start having more empathy for yourself and you've been hard on yourself all the time, judging yourself, beating yourself up. Something switches inside in your consciousness and you start developing more compassion, more empathy for yourself. It changes your life. So as we change more our consciousness, we do help change this world. It's like when you walk into a store, even like Walmart, let's say, and the person who's checking you out has a great big smile on their face, and you can tell that they really are making a connection with you. And on some level, though they don't know you, they kind of care if you're doing okay today. that shifts your day. That shifts your day. So the more of us shift into this new consciousness, the more we're contributing to the better world that we want to develop. That's why it's so important. And I'm about to give you some facts of things that are coming. You can't, I wrestled with this to a certain extent. Like, I believe that the people that listen to this show and read the blogs and things like that are people who can handle the truth without it destroying them. And that's what's important, that you can take in what's true, what's really happening and what's going to happen out in the world, but at the same time not get into like, I'm so afraid now that I can't operate. I feel desperate. I feel panicky. If you allow yourself to go to those places, you're then falling into the pit of what happens that makes people do the things that they're doing out in the world now. It's fear, hatred, things like that. That when it permeates the consciousness of the collective, that we get into these bad places. So this week, let's talk about this week before I go into bigger picture anymore. Well, right now we're in a dark moon, fourth quarter. It's not totally dark yet, but we're in the last quarter phase of the lunar cycle. And the new moon is just a few days away. On the 28th of July, we've got a new moon in Leo. I've written about this in the blog. I'm going to reiterate it. This year especially, more than most years, Cancer time of year is a time where we're still in the womb. We're still in a protected place. Might not always feel good, this protected place. Sometimes it can feel like we're stuck, or things are like without energy. But at the same time, it's familiar, and it's like a place of protection from the outer world, in effect, or at least that's how we sense it inside. When this new moon happens, this Leo new moon, it's not just because it's a Leo new moon like most years. Jupiter and Aries will be making a close trine, means a favorable aspect to that new moon in Leo. That adds more fire, more spirit, more energy, more positive energy to the day. So starting on the 28th, it's time to leave the womb, leave the protections, and with some faith and confidence and hope, that's Leo, go out into the world. Now that's going to mean something different for each one of us. And for some, it's just a feeling inside. Like, I feel ready to do something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to take myself out of this overly protected place and go out and make myself available, express myself, be my authentic self. A lot of what's been going on in our world over the last couple of years, part of the changing of ages, is to move into a new chapter of our lives and a new authenticity of our being to be expressed. So a lot of you, I know you go through this, you talk to your healers about this. It's like there's a certain chapter of your life that was before, and now you're into this new chapter. And in this new chapter, your authentic self, your new authentic self, wants to be alive and expressed. And your sense of purpose goes along with that. So take these next few days, still dark of the moon, even though we're not Sun in Cancer anymore. We are Sun in Leo already. That happened yesterday. But what happens is, like the sun goes into a certain sign, but until the moon catches up, there's not a new moon yet. You're still in the old lunar cycle. So the moon is going to catch up to the sun on the 28th at 5+ degrees of Leo. And at that time, we have our new moon. Jupiter's involved in it in Aries. And there's going to be a lot of spirited energy. Now, for most of us, that's going to be something good. But for some people, that spirited energy means now I'm going to do what I've been holding myself back from doing before. And it may not be a wonderful thing for certain people. You know, they no longer feel they have to like hold themselves back. Now they're going to go for it. For most of us, that's a very positive thing, leaving the womb and going out in the world with faith, confidence. But for others, it could be dangerous. Not you that's listening, I know, but there are people out there that's the case. So leaving the womb, going out. I wanted to touch just a moment on the fact that Chiron went retrograde last week on the 19th. Had an effect on last week overall. I haven't talked a lot about Chiron because it's not one of the main planets. In fact, it's not even really a planet. It's been called all sorts of things. Comet, planetoid, etc. But regardless, it's an important entity in our solar system. It sits in between Saturn and Uranus. And that's part of what its meaning is, a large part of what its meaning is. It's like a bridge between the Saturnian world on down and the Uranian world on out. Until 1781, the human family recognized Saturn as the furthest planet out. In 1781, Uranus was discovered around the same time as the American and French revolutions. Remember, as above, so below. So the meaning of Uranus has a lot to do with what was going on the Earth in our human family around 1781. We had two revolutions going on, the American Revolution, the French Revolution. What did they have in common? Let's move beyond the kings and the queens, which is a metaphor for let's move beyond authorities that are running our lives, governing our lives, controlling our lives, telling us what to do. We want a world of the people, by the people, and for the people. A lot of what the American Revolution was about and the French Revolution. So of the people, by the people, for the people. Liberation from that which controls us, authority figures that control us. Liberation. Equality was meant to be part of it too. That's spoken of in the documents with Constitution and Bill of Rights with the United States. Now, a lot of you are thinking, and you're right, a lot of these people that were writing the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they had slaves and they killed off a lot of Native Americans to get where they were getting. They didn't treat women as equals. That's all true. I like to think that all those things have improved since then. And therefore, we have to get to a place of saying they were messengers. They weren't examples of what they were writing about, but they were messengers of something divine that was coming through them about the potential of humanity on this earth. So back to what I was saying before. Chiron sits in between Saturn. Remember, still a patriarchal world to a large extent, but believe me, the patriarchal world was really all patriarchy back then, before Uranus was discovered. And there were some breakthroughs because of what Uranus was meant to give us. So Chiron is that bridge between the old world and the new world, between our ego world and our higher self. This is Chiron's purpose. Now, when was Chiron discovered? 1977. In 1977, you may not think of it as a big thing, but I sure do. There were two movies that weren't just like regular movies. They were extremely big and popular movies that came out in 1977. One was Star Wars, and you know how much that changed our culture. And the other one, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. What about Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Unlike a lot of the movies now that talk about aliens, ETs, I'd rather use, and talk about them, but it's about, all the horrible things they're going to do to the human family. Remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind? It was about these wonderful colors and sounds and the connections from the human family to what's out there in the world. That was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was letting us know that this earthly dimension and the dimensions out there, remember Uranus and out, and the dimensions out there, the heavens, can have a good relationship with one another. So Chiron is a bridge between that old world and its consciousness and the new world and its consciousness. and the inspiration from the heavenly realm, so to speak, for our consciousness. Uranus 1781, Neptune 1846, Pluto 1930. All extremely important to the changing and the shifting of our consciousness here on the earth for this new Aquarian age. So, we now know and follow the magic of the universe, the synchronicities, the signs you get if you're looking, the connections that are everywhere. When you're paying attention and you're not filled with fear, and you're alert to that world, it brings magic all the time. If your heart is heavy with fear, you're not gonna see the signs and symbols, or if you do see them, they're gonna look like something negative, like ominous, as opposed to something positive. So when the glass is half full for you, and your heart is open, and your mind is open, the magic can come in. Just because all these things are going on in the world, whether it's war or culture war, Trump, economy, that doesn't mean that we still can't see the light. That doesn't mean that we still can't connect with that which is beyond all that. And now's the time to make sure you do, because we're going without turning back. We're going forward now. After that Leo new moon, more than before. So it's time to really get into that new consciousness. Do your meditation, do your spiritual practices, hang out with people that believe like you believe. Don't hang out in the world of like, oh, Jesus, look what they're doing in Russia and Ukraine. Oh, God, no. Look what's happening with the economy. And then get all panicky and negative. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the world any good. Hey, back when people were facing the Depression and the world wars, back in the early 20th century. I mean, this is what I know from my parents' grandparents. You know, there were people that were loving families, neighbors, people that brought goods to one another, people that showed that they love you. Nowadays, a lot of people you talk to, they don't even know their neighbors. You know? So people came closer together during those tough times. And maybe that's something that'll happen again. Because we need to get back into the connection, back into the heart openings as we go through more of what this world is. And I can tell you, most likely the economy is going to take a bigger dip this autumn and winter. I can tell you that, most likely. Iran, something is going to happen with Iran around war, most likely with Israel. That should happen maybe in August, I think. The Ukraine-Russia thing is not going to get better. I think that's enough to give you right now. But, you know, those are things that are going to happen. We don't have control over that. But we do have control of what goes on in our minds, what goes on in our hearts. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what this show is dedicated to. So we're almost ready to talk to JudyAnn Masters. We're only a couple minutes away from that. And I just want to add a couple of things. Our next eclipse season, we have a solar eclipse on the 25th of October. And we have a lunar eclipse on the 8th of November this year. And we have an important, more important than usual, Mars retrograde that starts on the 30th of October this year and goes into the first quarter of next year. It's especially important because that Mars will be going retrograde in Gemini and be going over the United States Mars 3 times. So that means that that part of the United States will be activated 3 times over those 4 or 5 months of Mars retrograded and direct. So it's important. And this full moon, okay, the new moon is on the next week on the 28th, but then there's a full moon. The full moon, Leo, when do you have the full moon here? Full moon is on the 11th of August. And that full moon is going to be really powerful because not only is it a full moon, which is the sun in Leo and moon in Aquarius, you'll have a Saturn in Aquarius that will conjunct the moon, You'll have Uranus and Mars in Taurus that will be square, both the sun and the moon, and it's going to be strong. It's going to be very strong. So just let you know, it'll be especially strong out in the world and in our personal consciousness. And whenever there's something strong or an eclipse or something like that, it's not time to go, oh my God, no. It's time to go, whatever's stuck, I'm going to have a chance of breaking it down. Any challenges I've got are opportunities to move into new territory, to get things moving again, to get unstuck. That's what these big events are meant to do. And that's what they're going to do. Okay, I think we're almost ready for JudyAnn to come on here. Let's see, JudyAnn, I hope that you're ready over there. I'm going to let you on right now. JudyAnn, are you there? I think I only see a J. I think I only see a J. She was in the green room, so to speak. And then not there anymore. JudyAnn, if you can hear me at all, give me a call. Give me a call on the phone like you did before, and I'll bring you on right away. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait on JudyAnn. We have to wait on JudyAnn. She's calling you. Click the answer. Okay, here she's calling. JudyAnn. Don't worry about that. Just get this. Just get on from that link, and then I'll let you on the show. Just follow the link to get on the show. Yeah, come back on, and then once I can see you, because I haven't been able to see you there. Once I see you, then I'll just let you on right away. Okay. I hear something. Are you there now? Okay, I don't see you on the side either. Okay, let me let you on right now. Let's see what happens. Okay. Okay, now you're on, but you're right. I still can't speak from where you're at. Yeah. No. Now let me see if I can put it on speaker and see if I can get you heard. Okay, hold on. Say something, JudyAnn. See if I can get that a little louder. Say again, JudyAnn.
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Deborah, can you hear that? Can you hear JudyAnn when she speaks, Deborah? Deborah, can you hear JudyAnn when she speaks? Deborah, I don't hear you either right now.
Well, now you should be able to hear me.
Now I can hear you, yeah.
My mic was turned off. Make sure,
JudyAnn,
make sure your mic is turned on.
Make sure your mic is turned on, JudyAnn.
All right, so it has a red line through it, but I can't undo it.
You need to just click it.
I will, yes.
Just click this line where the line is through the circle. Click it off and your mic should come right on.
It isn't.
Yeah, her camera must not be working either, Deb, because I can't see her either.
Neither is happening. I'm being denied
We haven't had this before.
you-
So
Can you put your speaker on the phone and just let her talk, Leo?
can I do what? Yeah, I've got it. I've got my phone on speakerphone right now.
Okay. Well, there's a little bit of an echo.
Yeah. Can you hear her, Deb, when she's speaking?
Very hardly.
Very faintly, I know.
How about if I go like that?
Can you hear her any better, Deb?
Can you hear me any better when I put
Well, we're trying to hear her on the screen, not from her phone. Is the issue?
I know, but I'm trying to get speakerphone either way, some way.
Can you turn me off so I can to see if there's an echo?
Okay. Say something, JudyAnn.
Hi, how are you? Okay, maybe what we can do.
I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm on the air. I don't know about that. Yeah. I'm gonna have to let you go for now, JudyAnn. If you keep working on it, I gotta because there's listeners now. I want to be able to carry the show, so I'm gonna take you off right now. You keep working on it, and then you can wave to me from your from where things are at if things work for you. Okay. Okay. Bye. Hey, Deb. I can't hear you again, honey. Put your thing back on.
Sorry about that. I had my mic off. Okay.
Wow, Mercury retrograde, huh?
And it's not even Mercury retrograde.
I know.
Yeah.
Deb, what are you sensing with the change in consciousness and things like that? What are you sensing both inside yourself and with people that you're talking to and working with? We're trying to change consciousness here.
Well, first I want, before I address that, I just wanted to say that I really resonated with what you said about the new moon.
Yes.
Of Leo, because and coming out of our cocoon, out of our cave,
yes,
out of our safety zone, because I've been noticing myself feeling like I want to stay inward, very inward right now. Even though the sun moved into Leo already, I'm feeling like I don't really want to go out. I want to be cocooned still. So it was really good to hear what you said about how the energies will shift at the new moon. So we'll be coming out of the Cancer, even though Venus is in Cancer now. There'll be other planets in Leo to bring us out more, because I've been not feeling that being out. So it'll
happen at the
yeah.
new moon.
Yeah,
maybe
really.
Dan's right. Maybe she won't come out until
maybe she's not meant to come out yet. Yeah, that's a good.
Because it is coming out for her to speak. She's never told anyone about these experiences that she's had with ETs ever.
Yes, and maybe
it really is a coming out. She's right.
Yeah, and maybe there's a reason why she's not ready yet.
Exactly.
So yeah, and to answer your question about the change in consciousness, the main thing that I feel, which isn't always easy, and also from a talk I just listened to, is that we need to focus our consciousness and our awareness on the new earth, the new world, the new age, and not give our energy or our focus to the old world that is destructing and dismantling. Exactly. And I know I've said this many times on here, but we really need to focus on what are our visions for the new Aquarian golden age, and to really focus on that. And the other thing that I've been getting guidance about is through divination and other means is that we need to be very mindful. And I guess this is our consciousness, being very mindful of our thoughts and bringing them into a more positive state, positive and loving state. Yeah. And also that means, I think, clearing and releasing, because we can't ignore if we have negative or shadow or other feelings and emotions coming out, but we need to bring light to the darkness within us. And I don't mean darkness as in bad darkness, but negativity. Like, we need to bring the light of consciousness, or the light of the sun, to any kind of negative old paradigm consciousness within us, and realize that we're clearing right now, as we're transitioning into this new age and new earth, new golden age. We're also still clearing ancestral traumas, epigenetic, traumas that we're still carrying in our bodies.
Right.
And, on Tuesday, so, I talk a lot often here about the shift, about the cycle of Venus, and how we shift gateways every month when, during the morning phase right now, when the moon and Venus conjunct each other. So when the waning moon and Venus conjunct each other, we're getting ready to leave the sacral chakra and move into the root chakra on Tuesday morning. And the root chakra has a lot to do with, what we carry in our bodies and our connection to our ancestors. And also, any traumas around belonging or not belonging and things like that. So I think that, right now it's really important to root ourselves. Well, during that that gateway of the root chakra, to really find ways to ground ourselves to the earth, to feel at home in our bodies.
People who get traumatized a lot, that's not an easy thing to do, is it?
Exactly.
Traumatized, that root chakra gets kind of like really
Exactly. Because
mangled.
Exactly. Because our root chakra is our place of survival, and where we get our needs met or don't get our needs met, or where we carry so many traumas from this life and other lifetimes of abuse and war and all kinds of things. So it's not an easy time right now on the planet in a lot of ways, because we're still clearing and releasing the old vibrations, the old archetypal energies, the old traumas from our bodies, from our souls, from our psyches. And yet we also...
Aren't you kind of saying that karma kind of is partly ancestral karma that we have, that we take with us from ancestors, the things that they've done, that we have karma to work out in that way?
I think that's part of our karma, but we also have personal karma.
Of course.
Yeah, so we have our personal karma, but we also have definitely our familial and our ancestral karma for generations back.
And our
And
country
so,
too. I mean, look at
yes,
slavery, things like that. We have lots of karma in this country to work through.
Yes. But there's so many more healing modalities now, and there's so many people doing deep ancestral work. I mean, a lot. And connecting with our indigenous ancestors, because we all have indigenous ancestors that have a wisdom that we need now as we make this transition, because they had wisdom of living in harmony with the earth.
Yes.
Cycles of the earth, the stars, the planets, because the indigenous elders and the indigenous ones that we have the DNA of, that we're connected to ancestrally, they lived that in that sacred relationship with not just the earth, but with the stars. They saw everything as having meaning.
Yes, and now the new challenges, though, which they didn't have because they were isolated from people all around the world. The new challenge, and this really fits with Age of Aquarius, is how we all need to connect with one another all over the world. That's the new challenge for humanity.
Yes.
Since the 20th century, we've had like transportation systems and communication systems that have brought us closer together. And yet we still, go to war with people instead of make good relationship with them. So we need to learn how to do that.
Yes, and I think you're right. I think that's a big, big, big part of the shift of consciousness is into community And I was reading a little bit about the bees and the bee priestesses and
Yeah, awesome.
hive consciousness. Hive consciousness is where everyone works together for, they're serving the mother, the queen bee, but they're all working together in consciousness together. So I just feel like you're right. And that's what the Aquarian age is. The Aquarian age is about living in communities. So I think, heading more towards our local communities is what's going to be part of the transition. And the shift in consciousness, I guess, would be from, what would the shift in consciousness be then? From individual consciousness to group and collective and collective consciousness.
Well, in a way, both. Well, in a way, both, because with the diversity within unity, we're learning a new kind of community and a new kind of unity. That's not everybody has to be the same. So everyone does have to develop their individual self and their independence. And at the same time, while you're saying this is who I am, I don't mean from a big ego place, but just from a identification place. This is who I am as an individual, and from there, I merge and make community and make unity with everyone in it. I don't think that's ever been done on a large scale before.
No, that's right. Because it's either a society where there's so much individualism or so much like togetherness where everything's merged and people feel confined because they can't be themselves. Exactly. So I think, it's interesting. Another way to look at it is that we all know our piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And that there's a hologram. And each of us is a different facet that makes up the whole. None is more important or lesser than the other. Exactly. But we're not all the same. Like you said, we're not all the same.
If you look at an orchestra,
right,
you'll see each instrument has its place within whatever it's playing, right?
Yes.
But yet every instrument, though different from the other one, play together for beautiful music. This is what we're capable of as a human family.
Yes, really that's the perfect metaphor, is an orchestra creating this beautiful music together. And I think, just like a hive too, they all work together and they create this beautiful, like elixir, honey, so the same kind of thing.
Yes.
And I think with the orchestra though, I like that metaphor even better because there's different instruments, there's different sounds, there's different notes. And, each person is playing something different. But yet
all you have is this conductor. He's not controlling everybody.
Right.
Or she. They're bringing all of it together to make the beautiful music.
Exactly.
So you don't have this controlling, demanding center or leader. You have one that is guiding everyone to make the beautiful music.
Right. And I think, in the new earth, the new Aquarian golden age, I think, as we've talked about many times on here, I think too, is everybody has their own direct link to source and the earth. Like people are in their sovereignty.
Exactly.
And at the same time, they're in community, kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But there doesn't need to be an intermediary or a priest or priestess necessarily, other than to maybe help hold the sacred space.
Right, or to give some guidance when you're falling down.
Yes.
But what's also interesting is that I think when it comes to males and females, I think we've messed up in this regard. It's like we've given the males the like individual, independent, do it on my own. And we've taught females, programmed females, you're doing it for everybody except yourself. I'm just talking about the programming, not the reality of what it is to be male or female. Yes. That we're in the process of changing. And yes. Men have to open up their feminine side, so to speak, and realize that connections are as important, if not more important, than the individuality. And women, yes. I think this is happening with the women that I see and work with. They're empowering. I know you do, for sure, your work. Yes. They're empowering themselves. They don't have to be nice all the time or doing things for other people. They can now say, I'm doing this for me.
Yes. Yes. And they're and they're getting empowered,
Yes.
and they're coming into their sovereignty where they don't feel like they have to depend or need someone else for their sense of who they are or their identity, and they don't always have to be serving and nurturing all the time, even though that's a wonderful quality of the divine feminine. There's many dimensions to the divine feminine and masculine, of course.
Exactly.
You know, there's the wild feminine, there's the nurturing feminine, there's the intuitive and wise. I mean, there's so many aspects of the feminine masculine.
Tell us more about some of those. Like, I mean, you've done a lot of study on that kind of thing. Tell me more about some of the more powerful and wild goddesses that represent that part of what it is to be a woman. I know Kali's like that really stands out in my mind because it's hard to put her into a positive light. But help me.
So Kali and Sekhmet and Durga, they're very, very powerful goddesses. And they actually were summoned when the earth was headed in a not good direction. And they were summoned by the gods to help.
At the flood, when was that?
No, not necessarily at the flood, but just when the ego gets out of control, because
Ah,
they actually help to tame the ego. But what are some other wild goddesses? I don't know, like Freya, Aphrodite has some of that a little bit. Some of the Taras and the Dakinis have a wildness to them because there's 21 different Taras. Some of them are more like meditative, and the green Tara is very much connected to the earth. But then the red Tara, which I've been reading a little bit about because of the Root Chakra gateway, is she's more wild and fierce. And even Kuan Yin, though she's the goddess of compassion, she rides a dragon, and there's a fierceness to her compassion. But the wild primal feminine, I think a lot of women are starting to get in touch with. I think of like the lioness energy as very much connected to that primitive, fierce feminine. But I think that's rising now, the fierce,
I think we
wild
need this. I think we really
Yeah.
need this. And I think one of the reasons why it's taken so long to happen is because of the programming that women have had, that you got to be nice all the time. If you got to be nice all the time, you don't let these other parts of yourself out. So
Yeah.
this programming really has been, suffocating a lot of women's spirit.
That's right. That's right. And I think of little children, and when you see a 2-year-old, and I remember our granddaughters when they were 2 years old, they were the wild feminine. Oh my gosh, out of control, and then how it gets tamed.
Yeah.
And I think the feminine and the masculine both need to keep that connection with the primal, wild, instinctual part of their nature. Not that it dominates, but they can't squelch that. And I think that's what has happened to the feminine a lot. So
how do you do this? So let's say that you're, let's take the suburban lifestyle, for instance, that people go into. How do you get into a lifestyle like that where everything is kind of laid out and organized and scheduled, and you got to take care of your kids and you got to be responsible and all that? How do you do that and at the same time bring out these wilder, more primal sides to yourself?
that's a really good question.
It's not easy, is it?
That's a really good question, because I think, those societal confines.
Yeah.
I would say it's 144 here, by the way, in Arizona. It's 144, the magical number. But I think that first it's being aware that you feel stuck in a box, and becoming aware that there's other sides to yourself. That's where like the goddess tradition can help, because when you learn about the different aspects of the goddess, or the different archetypes, that can help you open up to that. I think people go through, rites of passage in their life, or a woman goes through menopause, and the wildness or the fierceness or the anger comes out, or whatever she hasn't resolved in herself. Menopause sometimes brings that out. So I think, nature helps, take care of some of that. And I don't know, just being aware that, you feel programmed, or you don't feel like you're free to be your authentic self. I mean, just starting to have that awareness. I think more and more women and people are becoming aware of, the old confines of the old paradigms and old realities, and they want to break loose. And Uranus helps with that. So, maybe a person living in a, suburb who has a Uranus transit or a Pluto transit, they might break out of
Yes.
those confines.
And that
And,
can break down their family or their relationship, things like that, potentially.
yeah. Well, I think there's ways to stay in balance with it, but there's things they can do like dancing and creative, creative things that can help them break out um, of those boxes and those confines. I don't know if that answered your question,
Well,
but
let me see if I can throw anything in there. I, I think maybe there's a whole new paradigm that we're coming up to now. That the young people who are going to be our future are going to have a strong voice as to what we're going to keep and what we're not going to keep. Maybe the way we've been doing some of our relationships and families and suburban lifestyles and stuff, maybe that's all going to be something new now.
yeah, I think it is. I mean, I know the young people that I work with, they see things different. I mean, and all the gender,
For sure.
gender fluidity and moving towards more androgyny and different kinds of relationships. And also I think there's young people coming in with maybe being open to more dimensions than we have been.
Yeah, that's really true.
Or maybe there's more permission for
Yeah.
them to be more open with, because a lot of us actually came in with a lot of spiritual gifts that we closed down. And I think that now, with the consciousness shifting, those children that come up in with spiritual gifts, which I think we all have spiritual gifts, they can be nurtured more, and they're different. They've evolved. There's evolution.
That's right.
So, some of these children, may have gifts that are meant to help bring in the new consciousness.
I think that's very true, and I think parents need to be aware of that too. If they decide they want to raise their kids the same way that their parents did, that's not going to work. I mean, even with our generation, when the parents tried to do it the same way that the previous generation did it doesn't work because each generation has their own voice to put out into the world. And if we're continually passing it down, doing it the same way, evolution doesn't happen. So parents have to wake up to who is this child and what can I do? You got to give rules and boundaries and things like that. But what can I do to help this child be who it's meant to be in this world?
Exactly. And in the lecture I was just listening to with Diana Cooper, she was talking about that. She was talking about how in the new earth, in the new age, the new consciousness, in schools are going to be very different.
Yes.
They're going to be focused on what is this child's unique soul gift and how can we nurture that and bring it out, rather than these imposed things upon a child so they can't be free to be their authentic, gifted soul self.
Exactly.
So that's something to really look forward to, is to really, be able to nurture those gifts that a child has and that they come in with.
I think that's really, really true. And so, like a lot of, I don't want to get too much into politics, but this is why we need Republicans and Democrats to be together to work things out, not separate. Because there's a lot of people on the left, more Democratic people, they they kind of like think that the school system the way it is okay, and it's not. We can't program our kids to be a certain way all the time and to have, here's the way that it is, here's the way it was. We need to open up our minds and our hearts to give our kids something new, not just to program them and this is the way you should see yourself and your family and life.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, even, my generation, there's been our generations, there's been Waldorf schools and spiritual schools, and a lot of parents choosing to, homeschool their children or have their children go to different kinds of schools. So those kinds of schools are starting to happen, or earth schools where you're like, that's what Waldorf's like, where the children are very, attuned to the earth and the nature spirits. And, that's a whole, like, I know children that went through Waldorf through their whole education, and they're like these, amazing, unique beings.
More creative.
Yeah. Very connected to their creativity. So, yeah. I think there'll hopefully be more and more of those kinds of schools.
I hope so.
I think everything's going to be changing. And we're, when I always remember how, when I first heard someone say, pretty soon we're going to be able to see people on our phones. And I was like, no way. There's no way that's going to happen. My mind couldn't imagine it. Right. So between now and the next, how fast everything changed in a short period of time. Can we imagine how much things are going to be changing in the next 10 years?
Absolutely.
Seriously. In the next 20, 30 years, drastic changes.
Without
and that we can't even imagine yet.
Oh, I know you're right. I mean, the new age is going to roll in ways that we don't even know.
We don't know yet.
We can't even comprehend yet. It's really true.
Yes. And it's exciting.
I mean, now when you look at schools, I mean, it's like art has left a lot of schools, music has left a lot of schools, even PE has left a lot of schools. And the concentration for the last several years has been on science and math.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, that's all left brain. We don't want to bring up our kids to be proficient at things like science and math and then not be more proficient at right brain, heartfelt ways of operating on this earth.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that that's a lot of the shift in consciousness is from the left brain to the right brain, but then bringing the right and the left brain into balance.
Exactly.
And that we kind of might have to swing to the right brain more to open up our intuitive faculties, our creative faculties, but then we need to come into balance with the left and the right, because it's been so...
It's opening up to the feminine in a way. You know that? Opening up the right brain.
It is, because it's been so left brain scientific. But what's so interesting is when you go really far into science, you meet the spiritual. That's what quantum physics teaches us. Like when you go really far into something, it all comes together eventually. And, like how science and quantum physics have proven that everything is connected. And it's actually scientifically proven now. So where science and spirituality meet is very powerful. And that's the left and the right brain meeting.
It's true with math too. I mean, like math also is numerology. So there's all sorts of meaning to the numbers. It's not just figuring things out logically.
And sacred geometries.
Yes.
And how the whole universe,
astrology,
and Earth is made of sacred geometries.
Yes, astrology is based on it.
Yes, and the whole like Fibonacci spiral, it's in all of nature. Yeah. And so it's really phenomenal when the right and the left brain come together, and science and spirituality and all that comes together.
And this is where we're headed. I know this is where we're headed. It's just a matter of not hanging on so tightly to the way that things have been and opening up to all these new ways.
Yes, and having faith and trust that we really are moving into a new age, that it's not a joke, or that it's really true, that we really are, even though it may look chaotic out there, but we need to just remember and have faith that, you know, those of us, most of the people listening now, we've come here for this time. We've come here for a reason at this most amazing time on our planet, really, even though it feels difficult at times, really difficult.
That's where some people go with all this.
It's the end of the old world as we've known it.
Exactly. It's not the end of the world itself. And a lot of the biblical stuff, you know, gets people confused that way too. The world is not going to end, but it's going to drastically transform and change. And it is already in the process of doing that.
Yes, it's going to drastically transform. And there's going to be a lot of magnificent things happening.
That's right.
And a lot of death and rebirth. I mean, whenever there's rebirth and new, there's death. There's that in that cycle of death and rebirth. So it's going to be really interesting to see all that's going to unfold.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's going to have to do with the people from other dimensions and other lands in this universe. We didn't get to do it today. I feel really bad we didn't get JudyAnn on today, but I can promise you out there, we have a whole bunch of people lined up, including JudyAnn. We're going to get her on to talk about the connections we're going to be making with entities in other dimensions and other places of the universe, because that's part of all the connections too. That we on the earth are not separate from the rest of the universe.
Right. And when I was a little girl, I knew that. I knew that I had lived in the stars, not just the earth. And I mean, there's so many beings like you said, in other dimensions. I like to call them beings or star beings, different kinds of beings that are here to help us, like you've been saying. We have divine help.
Exactly.
It comes in different forms. It comes in different forms. And, you know, the elemental kingdom, the nature spirits, the devas, the fairies, they're in other dimensions too.
How about another show we get you to talk more about the devas and the fairies and the angels and things like that? I think that we haven't talked much about that on the show, and I know you have some experience with all that.
A little bit, yeah. And you know, also then there's the angelic realm and the archangelic realm, and there's all kinds of, you know, enlightened beings. There's enlightened beings, you know, in the other dimensions. So and everything. What's so interesting to remember is that everything that we see, and even in the other dimensions, is a reflection of us on some level, because we're all connected.
Exactly. So
how
can people get a hold of coming to the end today?
Because I know. I just got my bowl out, but I realize we don't have time. We don't have time for that today. But
people get a hold of you, honey, that would like to have a session with you, or to even just to ask you questions.
So my email address is Elilia, which is on the screen. It's ELELIA without the apostrophe in my email. So it's Elilia at Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. And then my website is Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. And then soon, hopefully by the fall, Leo and I will have spiritualrenaissance.com rebirthed.
Yes.
And then Leo, you've got your website now too.
Yeah, Leo.com. And you can find out about the counselings and the astrology readings and stuff that I do on that Tallarico.com. Or you can go straight to my email at Solus, SOULUS, at AOL.com in order to ask me questions or to say you're ready to have a reading or a counseling session of some sort.
And I offer counseling sessions and trainings and classes and different kinds of healing as well.
I think next time we have a show, I'd like you to spend, if it's okay with you, spend some time talking about what it is that you do that people can come to you for, because I don't think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We'll do that coming up, okay?
That sounds good. And in the meantime, everybody, nurture this ending of this lunar cycle before the new moon, and just really allow yourself to be in that cocoon in the deep womb before you feel ready to come out.
I think that's good advice because that's right where we're at.
Yes, exactly. Infinite blessings and love, everybody.
And
I
we'll
know
see
it's over.
2 weeks. What's that? I don't know, 5th or 6th of August? 2 weeks from today, whatever that is.
Sounds good.
Take
All
care.
our love.
Bye, everybody.